Full disclosure, Everbloom provided this kit free of charge in return for an honest review. It's a rainy spring day, and what a better time to build my Everbloom urban mobile garden. What's an urban mobile garden? I mean, we know it weighs 62 gross pounds. It's a planter on a raised platform that has wheels. Let's check it out. With the cardboard peeled away, we see that our planter comes wrapped in styrofoam. These are the bottom boards. They look like wood, but they're not. It's some kind of a polymer, and you have a smoother grain on one side and a more pronounced one on the other, so dealer's choice. They give you some material for inside the planter. Let's move these away. Generally what I do is I sort out all the material, so I'll get all the bottom boards in one pile, take the short boards and put them in another, take my hardware, set that in a different position. These look like caps, set those aside. So this looks almost like a weed barrier, and I believe this is going to go on the bottom, but we don't need that for right now. Some additional hardware, put that over there. And then we have our corner post, and with this unit you can have a depth of 7.5 or 10 inches. Most plants like 10 inches, so I'm just going to go with 10 inches. So that's what we're going to build today. So I'm just going to finish putting these long boards over on one side so that when we start the build, we have easy access to everything. So I have all my materials around me, so they're easy to pick. And remember, I told you you get two faces, one that's less grainy, one more pronounced. And I said you could choose. Normally that's the case, except on the end boards, these are set up so that I can't have the smooth face on the outside because these grooves need to be on the inside of the container. So that gives me this face, so therefore I'm going to have to go with one even look, so I'm going to go with the more pronounced grain on everything. Not a showstopper, but just a little annoyance. I really want to give my hats off to them because these casters have brakes on all 4 wheels. They could have gone cheap and just done 2 wheels, but they decided to do all 4. So that's pretty cool. And they give you all the tools. You get a hex key and a driver. So you may need a mallet to persuade some things to come together, but pretty much, and a screwdriver for these, Phillips number 2. But other than that, you just need hands and maybe someone to help you piece it together. We won't have someone today, so it'll be just me, myself, and I. So let's start assembling this. We grab 2 corner posts, and you make sure that the rail opening is towards you and that the added rail is on the inside. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take that short board, remember that had the funny little cut, and it has a lip on the top. It's flat on the bottom, so we're going to make sure that lip is still pointing up. We're going to align it with the grooves, and then we're just going to push it down into the rails. Make sure that the legs are straight. If they're coming in, it's going to be harder. This is obviously a lot easier with 2 people, but it's still doable. And you bring that rail, that board, that short board, all the way down till it hits the stop here. So that'll, once you hit that, you don't push any further. There's also a metal stop here. So that's what the first one should look like. Now, since you've done this, you might as well grab the other two supports, grab the remaining short board with this lip up, and do the same thing. So you have a pair. Quick tip, when you align the bottom of this board with the edge here, just catch that, knock it in a little bit, then come over here and start knocking in the other one. That way, both sides of the board will start traveling down. If you want to use a mallet, wait until you've gotten about 3/4 of the boards in, because that gives it more stability. And then if you want to, you can take a few whacks on the ends of it with a mallet to drive it down to that stop that's down here on both sides. Now here's the tricky part. We grab the long board, again, it's the long board, with that lip facing up, and now we're going to slide, there's a little groove in here on both of these rails on both ends, and you're going to slide that down on this open channel here, and then you're going to get this one, put it over on this side so that you have support on both ends. So, but once you coax it, like I just did there, now you grab this support. So much easier with two people. So much fun with one. And once you get it to catch here, which I just did, see it's that easy, then you just start bringing this down. And this one you're going to bring all, here let me turn this towards you. This one you're going to bring all the way down to the stop. So this is what it should look like. You have matching board with the lip up on 3 sides. We're going to do the 4th side a little differently. For the final long board, again with this lip up, we're going to slide it down the rail, but instead of coming all the way down to the stop, we're going to come part way down. So 1, 2, we're probably going to stop when we get to the second hole on this rail. So to come down to here, and I'll show you what happens after that. As before, you line up the markings on the board and just get them in. And we're going to push this down until we get to that second hole. And there it is. So we stop. Grabbing one of our bottom boards, and it doesn't matter which grain you want, we're going to take it over, and now we're going to slip one end of it, the narrow end, down to the groove on the rail that's all the way down to the stop. And then if we've done the rail that's only to the second hole correctly, the board should rest here. And what we're going to do is we're going to line up all our bottom boards all the way across. With all the bottom boards laid in, it should look like this. And this is the one where we went down just to the second hole with the long board. So they're all at an angle and they're all slotted into this bottom groove. So now that we have them all in, all we have to do is get this rail down all the way until you hit the metal stop on both ends. So you may need the mallet for this, or you may be able to do it by hand, but get it all the way down. With the long board all the way down to its stop, it should almost look like a air hockey table. At this point, you should have just 4 boards left over. 2 short boards, 2 long boards. They have grooves on both sides of them and different finishes. Pick one, grab a short board, come over, and just get that into position. It's so much easier when I'm using 2 hands. Anyway, you can align it up, get it down to the stop, do the same for the remaining 3 sides. Oh, I forgot to mention one thing. This edge, it's the same on both sides of this board. So it doesn't matter. There's no up or down on this edge. With all 4 boards in, this is what it should look like. And now we're going to have to take this entire unit and put it on its end because we need to attach the casters to all 4 support columns. And the one gotcha that I want you to be careful with is that when you go to lift this up, the boards aren't screwed in yet. So be careful that you don't try lifting on this part. You're better off lifting down here since that's a much tighter connection. So if you have 2 people, that's even better. So you want to get this over on its side so that we can put the wheels on it. I'm actually going to bring it over here and do it on the cardboard so that I don't end up scraping the metal finish. To install the casters, you're going to need 1 bolt. It has a hex on the top, a hex key, a nut, and a nut driver, and of course, the caster. The way this mounts, you go to the support rail, there's an opening that's facing in, so that one will be facing up towards us. So you want to make sure that your caster has 2 holes for mounting, and you don't want to make that hole go vertical as we're looking at this, because then it'll only be supported by 1 spot since there is nothing here, nothing to catch it. You want support on 2 sides, which means we're going to turn this so that when we insert our bolt, it actually catches on this side, and then you put our nut on this end. If you end up putting the bolt like this, which is wrong because again, the opening of the support rail is right underneath it, then you get into this predicament. So you don't want that. You also don't want to put this bolt on the inside because then your nut's going to be on the outside, and aesthetically that just doesn't look all that nice. So bolt here, get your nut. There are no need for washers. Use your belly. If I was a really fat man, this would be really easy. Okay, and now you use your 2 tools to tighten this down so that it doesn't rattle. Do that for all 4 support rails. When you're done, it shouldn't rattle. It should just stay solidly in place. With all 4 casters in place, if you want to set the brake, you simply push down, and that's a lock. And then you kick it up, and it's free to roll. At this point, you have some post caps, and we're just going to put those on the end. And you have to be careful on how they align. So you see this is not going to work, right? But if you turn it around, now it's going to grip on that end and on this end. So we just put that, and that's nice and neat. You get 6 of them, but you only need 4. You may recall how I mentioned that the top board is still loose, even with the end caps in place, it could still come out. So there are screws and washers that are included with the kit. Simply put the screw into the wide section of the washer, like so. Then we're going to take this, it's a self-tapping screw. So you're going to drive one here if you're using the 10-inch, so it catches the bottom board, and then up here to catch the top board. And what this will do for you is it'll strengthen the unit and keep the boards solid. So it's one solid piece and there's no jiggling around. Well, you can use a Phillips number 2 screwdriver. I prefer a drill driver. So much for self-tapping, huh? These self-tapping screws aren't that great, so I got a bit that's a little smaller than the shaft of the screw, and I'm just going to drill myself a little pilot hole. I don't know if you could see it, but there's a bit of metal so that a driver or a screwdriver won't fit inside this screw. And the fact that they're not really great self-driving screws, either pre-drill or find self-tapping screws that are better than this. It's about the one thing that I would ding this kit for. The instructions call out for 8 screws and washers, which indeed they supplied, but the drawing shows you with 16. So we secured our 8 for there and 4 there on the inside, so that way they're not visible from the outside and we still have stability. We are finally down to the last item in the kit, and that is the liner. Reason for the liner is, you have gaps in the bottom and holes for drainage. So if you put soil, it's just going to pour on out. So if you fold it, it's kind of big. It's actually a lot big for this box. But if you fold it in half, that should allow you to come up the sides of the planter and still have plenty of room for both ends. What I did was I just kind of folded it. I'm using some painter's tape to hold it in place until I can get some soil in here. Of course, you can just put this in and not put soil and just put potted plants in here, so you have that option. But for most of us, we're gonna lay out some gravel, some soil, and do our planting in this box. When totally assembled, it'll be 45 long, 19 wide, 36 high. Things I enjoy about this kit is it seems well built. I was kind of worried because there's no support going across the bottom of the legs, so I thought the legs would be the weak spot, but actually they get plenty of support from up here, so they're not going to collapse or jiggle on you. I love the casters. I wish I could have a choice of both sides of the wood, but because as we learned about the short board, we're stuck with the heavier grain, but that's okay. I like the fact that they included tools with it. Things I don't like are the fact that there's a lot of excess material. You see all these shavings on the floor and in the kit. Well, that was just everywhere. It just was kind of messy, and I didn't like that. We had that one bad screw, plus the self-tapping screws weren't all that self-tapping, so that could be like a ding because you might have to supply your own. Or if you insist on using these screws, you'll probably end up having to use a drill to drill a pilot hole. But the box itself is solid. Like I said, the casters are great. It gives you a choice of 7.5 or 10 inches depth. So you as a gardener can decide what's best for you. And you can roll this bad boy out anywhere. And you can set the brakes on one or all four wheels to keep it in place. So this is the kind of thing that, you know, you could put your plants out to get some sun. And then if it's going to be chilly or too rainy, bring them in or move them to different parts of your patio or porch. So I'm actually quite happy with the product. It comes together fairly easy. They recommend 2 people, but as you saw, we just did it with 1 person. Also wanted to mention that their manual is pretty darn good. They illustrate all the parts. They tell you how to build both the 7.5 and the 10-inch depth planter, and it's complete. So you won't be lost following their guide. So my hats off to Everbloom for making an urban mobile planter that is well constructed and should last you many years of gardening. If you found this video interesting or useful, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, join the subscription team, and as always, thank you ever so much for watching.